Well, hello, I'm Dr. Kevin Lenton. If you've ever watched any of my presentations, perhaps even been to a workshop, perhaps seen something that I might have posted on social media, you'll know that I talk a lot about dis-ease. And what is disease, in fact? Well, dis-ease is a state. It's the gap between not being really sick but not being really well at all. It's that part where you go to the doctor and you feel there's definitely going to be something wrong with me. I don't feel like I'm firing on all cylinders. I feel overwhelmed. I feel tired. I feel demotivated. I've lost the spark. I'm trying to do the best that I possibly can. I've done all the reading. I've listened to podcasts. You might even have been for therapy or been back to the gym, giving it your all with your diet and nutrition. But in spite of that, you just feel like you can't get over the hurdle, the hump that just seems to keep you not firing on all cylinders and not being the very best version of yourself. There are so many patients and clients that I speak to on a daily basis, actually, that tell me my get up and goes just got up and gone. They go to the doctor and they explain that they're just not feeling well. Certain systems are not working that well. Perhaps they're feeling bloated, gassy, feeling like they've got some sort of a food intolerance. They're feeling like their heart is almost sometimes jumping right out of their chest. They're experiencing palpitations, anxiety. It gets blamed on all sorts of things, especially if you're a woman. It gets blamed on your hormones. If you're over the age of 40, you perimenopausal. That must be what the cause is. If you're not over 40, you're a mom perhaps, and you've got the demands of being a homemaker. Perhaps you're even a contributor to the financial state of the home. You have to look after the kids. You have to be the perfect wife or partner. And you know that it's actually just draining you at the end of the day. I'm a chiropractor and a functional wellness specialist, and I've been studying functional medicine for some probably 36 years now. I've been in clinical practice for 41 years, and I didn't start off with an interest in functional medicine. It almost came by default as I was managing my patients and clients and wanting to do the very best version of me for them. I wanted to give them everything that I possibly could to make them feel better, feel that they were productive, feel that state of inner peace within them. And chiropractic, believe it or not, went a long way to helping ease tension and tightness and certainly pain, helped with headaches and a number of different conditions. However, there was still something missing, and that's when I started looking for answers, really. And in those early days, functional medicine was pretty much in its infancy. It was out there, but not to the same extent that it is today. However, I embraced the concept. It just made such total sense to me that there were systems within the body. There was the elimination system, the detoxification system, certainly the hormonal system. There was the biotransformation system, the musculoskeletal system, the cardiovascular system. All of these systems that we have functioning around, going on, doing their merry job that they do all day, every day, minute by minute. And it was sometimes these systems that were in a state of dis-ease. Now, what does dis-ease actually mean? Well, if you are experiencing fatigue instead of vibrancy and energy, if you're experiencing unhappiness instead of joy, if you're experiencing that state where your digestive system is just not doing what it's supposed to do. Let's look at my notes and make sure I don't leave anything out. If you're experiencing distraction instead of focus, if you're experiencing confusion instead of clarity, if you're experiencing chaos instead of inner peace, and if you've lost that connection and you feel lonely, those are all signs of dis-ease. You go to the doctor and you say, I'm just not feeling great. All of these things, I'm overwhelmed, I feel fatigued, my digestive system's not working properly. And he does all the various tests with the best will in the world, but says, there's actually nothing wrong with you. I can't find anything. All your markers, all the tests that we do come up negative. And so you get labeled with generalized stress disorder. It's called life. You just have to suck it up, carry on, and be the best version of yourself, irrespective of how you're feeling. Well, that state of dis-ease is the precursor to all the chronic degenerative diseases. Now, what does that mean? Well, none of the chronic degenerative diseases, those are the ones like diabetes, for example, cardiovascular disease, autoimmune disease, some of the neurodegenerative diseases like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. Those are the conditions that we see clinically. In other words, the diagnosis can be made, and that's called disease versus disease. And that process of disease doesn't just happen overnight, even though you may get the diagnosis from one day to the next. They were conditions in evolution. They'd been building up sometimes for decades. And it's that state of dis-ease that I have specialized in over all these years to get to know and understand the impact that such conditions have and why it is so important to actually address them. Otherwise, it's a bit like the red warning light comes on in your car as you're driving along. You would be rather misinformed if you just put something over the red light and carried on driving, hoping that nothing is going to go wrong. That really wouldn't be the right way to handle that particular situation. Well, this state of disease can be actually equated to exactly the same thing. Why would you carry on when your body is trying to send you messages that there's something not right? Yet you just keep going, I hope it'll get better. Maybe next week it'll be better. Maybe I'll have a good rest this weekend and I'll feel much better on Monday. And so we just limp along, not firing on all cylinders, not being the very best version of ourselves. Now, how does this actually work? Let me paint a picture for you. We have two nervous systems in the body. We have what is referred to as the central nervous system. That's the brain and spinal cord. That's the voluntary nervous system. It activates muscles, allows you to move, walk here, do this, do that. It transmits pain messages and signals. It does a lot of communication from the periphery of your body, so from the parts further away, the outlying parts, that your legs, your arms, even your internal systems. And it sends those messages back to the brain, and the brain then sends the messages back to those areas and helps us to navigate roadblocks and things to do to make us be able to manage our life more effectively. Then there's a second nervous system called the autonomic nervous system. And the autonomic nervous system is really the involuntary nervous system. It's the one that is telling your digestive system to deal with the lunch that you just might have had. It's the one that's telling your heart to beat. It's the one that's telling your thyroid gland to produce the thyroid hormone. It's telling your ovaries what to do, when to do it, when to produce the sex hormones. So it's an involuntary thing. You're not having to say heartbeat, heartbeat, lungs breathe in, breathe out. It's doing it all automatically. And when that system or those systems are working optimally, we are functioning in a state of clinical metabolic ease. It's when there's a dysregulation in those in your body's ability to manage those systems that things start to go wrong. And eventually it ends up that the body just cannot cope anymore, and that's when you experience the clinical signs, and that's what's then called disease. Now, there is a condition called dysautonomia. That means that involuntary nervous system, the autonomic nervous system, is not functioning optimally. It's trying to tell you, it's desperately trying to send messages. Those are warning signs. It doesn't want you to get sick at the end of the day. And here's where the problems start, is that we just disregard the messages. We just keep soldiering on, hoping that it's going to get better, maybe taking another supplement, maybe trying to exercise more, or do some sort of an intervention. Maybe we take on meditation, maybe we do cold water swims. However, in spite of all of that, the condition persists. And the reason that it persists is because we are not actively managing that system. We're not putting a systematic strategy in place, following a particular guideline. That, by the way, is totally personal. Everybody's different. Even though the symptom might be the same, the underlying or upstream cause of that might be completely different for you versus your friend or colleague. So how does that all work at the end of the day? Well, that autonomic nervous system really has three divisions. The first division is called the ventral vagal system. Now, the ventral vagal system, and I don't want to bore you with too much biochemistry, but the ventral vagal system is when that autonomic nervous system is functioning optimally. The vagus nerve is transmitting all the information perfectly, adequately, and receiving information from the periphery and helping to modulate, mitigate, and manage life. And so that's when we're in a state of connection, when things are working well, we're socially excited, we love what we do, life's happy, and we're connected. We're following a trail and a track that just makes us feel as though we're in that point of inner peace. Now, sadly, that state is very often very minimal. We get into those situations, but they don't last. And the reason they don't last is because of the second phase, which is called the dorsal vagal system. Now, what that does, that really has two particular divisions of it. You have the sympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic part of the autonomic nervous system is the upregulator. That is your body's stress response system. That's the one that's keeping your body functioning and managing life and the threats that we come across. Then there's the converse, the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the down regulator. That's the one that helps to quieten things. It's also called the rest and digest. And the sympathetic is called the flight or fight. Now that's the one that puts us into protect mode, what I call defense physiology, helps us to manage trauma, not necessarily physical trauma, but it could be something somebody says to us that makes us feel offended or hard done by, or puts us into victim consciousness. Now, we have to manage that. That state of victim consciousness is not just a state. It has a physiological effect on your body. And it's when the body is bombarded by these physiological states for too long that we end up with eventually disease. So how do you manage keeping yourself in that state of ventral vagal stimulation where everything is perfect? Well, the first thing is that you have to identify it. You have to be aware. You have to self-reflect and look at what is creating that state of dorsal vagal stimulation where you're feeling in flight or fight. You're just feeling that life is difficult. You have to be on guard all the time. And your body perceives that as overwhelm, as fatigue, as anxiety, as worry, as IBS even, as increased blood pressure. And that will then, if you leave it long enough, eventually become disease. Now, we can manage that state very, very adequate. But first, as I say, you have to identify that it's there. Then you have to take control of that state. You have to use your conscious brain to actively talk to your subconscious brain where all the memories and experiences are housed and set. And that's where we have to be more in control with our conscious brain. If you don't do that, the conscious brain will dominate, and it's the old patterns that keep us in that same flight or fight state. And we can do that with, again, self-reflection, talking to yourself and identifying what the triggers are and the systems and the memories and experiences that are locked into the frontal cortex, why you are reacting to those. And it is a process of self-reflection and understanding. Then again, as I say, you have to manage those particular feelings, emotion. You have to do something to reduce the overwhelm, the anxiety, the worry. And then, of course, you have to get to that point where you can upregulate the parasympathetic to balance that flight or fight. And that's where things like cold water swimming, hot saunas, intermittent fasting, box breathing, meditation are all powerful interventions to help reduce the effect that the sympathetic nervous system is having. Now, if you leave that state for too long, that parasympathetic nervous system can go into the third phase of upregulation, and that's called the freeze phase. That's where things no longer work optimally. You almost feel like you just want to put your head under the covers and stay there and never get up. You can go into a state of complete numbness where you're just literally immune to anything. You don't have a desire to be out there. You don't have a desire to socialize. Your libido just disappears and all sorts of things start to go wrong. Very difficult to get back from that state into the sympathetic nervous system state and then eventually back into the ventral vagal state. All of this can be done. Now, it's important to identify this. And if you feel that you'd like more information, please reach out. There will be some links in the show notes below this, and please feel free to subscribe to this channel. I will be providing lots more information as we go along. I realize this has been a long post, but if you're interested in finding out more about this, please reach out to me. My details are below in the show notes, and I'd be more than happy to share more information. I'm Dr. Kevin Lenton. Thank you for listening.